conferences, piles of flyers, getting stuck on endless email lists, never-ending calls. There's an easier way to sort through and find the best school fundraisers. School Zone Podcast proudly presents the 10 Top School Fundraising Ideas for 2017, a guide of top fundraising companies handpicked from the best podcasts. As an added bonus, it lists 5 awesome resource companies that would add tremendous value to your school and students. A guide to 10 top fundraising companies and 5 resource companies. And we're giving the guide away for free. That's right, for free. Ready to simplify the search? Download the free guide at schoolzonepodcast.com. Welcome to School Zone School Fundraising Ideas Podcast. We interview top fundraising and resource companies to help you find a solution to your next school fundraising or school resource need. Are you ready to simplify the search? Now, here's your host, Matt Miller.
Hello, School Zone. Matt here at the San Jose Convention Center, 2017 California PTA. I'm here with Nancy Krop of Click My Cause. I just got done eating and I'm slurring my words because of my sandwich, I guess. Anyway, Nancy, thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about you and why you in this amazing convention center on a beautiful Saturday.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So I am here to take our California schools. They currently rank near bottom. We're in the bottom 5 in academic performance and in per student funding. The California schools I attended ranked in the top 10. And I'm here to make a difference and let all PTA members know how they can make a difference for our schools simply by clicking twice on their smartphone. 2 clicks and they can speak up for education legislation pending in Sacramento. We're the silent majority right now. We need to be vocal, make a difference for our schools.
So what's your background?
My background is I'm a trial attorney, and then I became a mom. And I found out when my student started elementary school that our schools had dropped to the bottom 5. And when he was about 8 years old, he came home from school. He had tears running down his cheeks. And he said, "Mom, please homeschool me. There's nothing in the schools for me. We have no art, we have no music, and they just closed the libraries today." And I said, well, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable because I attended schools that ranked in the top 10 in the U.S. And so I actually suspended my law practice. And I started, meeting with all the education experts, Delane Easton, former superintendent. I met with Linda Darling Hammond at Stanford University and asked, what happened? How did California schools drop from the top 5 to the bottom 5? And how can we make a difference to rise back to the top 5? Because we have kids in the school today, and they don't get a do-over. This is their one chance to receive an education. How can we make a difference? And I met with Joan Buchanan, who's chair of the California Education Committee, and what she told me is schools are being cut every year. Every year they're being cut, but guess what? No one touches state parks. A state park never gets touched, and she said the reason why is because Sacramento's inundated with communications from people, don't touch my park. She goes, but schools, we hear from nobody. And I became legislation director for the PTA in my area, and I found out there's a lot of bills that could help our schools, and none of us know about it. And if we know about it, we don't have time to make a phone call. We don't have time to write an email. So being from Silicon Valley, I talked to people and found out I could design an app where the app would send you an alert. There's a bill right now that'll make a difference for your kids in your schools. Open your alert and send your postcard. 2 taps, you're done. And if we can get millions of us tapping for our kids, I think we can restore our schools back to top performing.
Awesome. Very cool. So how long ago was it that you started all this?
Well, I started the research a long time ago. I started researching it, and then I also had to figure out what organization to work with. And that's when I found out that PTA actually had 800,000 members, and I'm thinking, how do I mobilize 800,000 people? We don't have time to make phone calls. We don't have time to write emails, but I've got 800,000 people, and those 800,000 people all have parents and friends and family. How do we mobilize them? And that was a starting point. I found out that I wanted to work with PTA, but then I had to think about, well, how do we do this? How do we do this? And then it led to discussions with techies. And then last year, finally, 2016, I launched the app with PTA in the East Bay, and we had 100% action rates on our mobile alerts, 100%. Email alerts generate about a 1 to 3% action rate because they're buried in your email inbox. And if you find it, you don't have time to read it and fill out a form. Our mobile alerts, we generate 100% action rate last year, and that's when I said, okay, I got to get to the state PTA convention. let people know. We're running alerts again this year, and with a much larger audience now, we're running at about 86% action rate, because I think some people see a bill, maybe don't want to support that particular one, but we're at 86%. And then I can do, I don't do it, the PTA that's running the alerts. They send out reminder alerts, and those are generating 100% action rates. And then my goal is, because the name of our company is Click My Cause, we're a public benefit company, so I want to add the environment. I want to add in healthcare, affordable housing, everything that child needs to, survive and thrive. Not just survive, but thrive in school needs to be on this app. So if you have a child who's hungry, it doesn't matter if I give that child the best school. They're going to need a really good school meals program. Or if a child needs access to health care. If the child's sick, they can't learn. So we got to work on affordable health care for our children. So it's called Click My Cause. Everything that a child needs to succeed in school, those organizations will be on our app and issuing alerts.
Very cool. So what are some of the bills or whatever that right now you're making people aware of that could begin to have some of this impact?
Yeah, so right now we have hot bills that are up for vote right now, and we're issuing alerts on them right now. But we have a bill that will prohibit concealed weapons on school grounds. People can actually be on school grounds right now with concealed weapons, so that's a hot topic. We also have a bill to protect our immigrant children. They're scared to go to school. They're scared they won't come home. So we have a bill setting up requirements for the federal authorities before they can come on a school ground and take a child. They have to actually go through all these, lots of steps. The final step is actually they have to check in with the state superintendent. We have bills to restore the arts in school. Most of our schools, 90% of our schools, don't have art anymore. And there's bills introduced in Sacramento every year for art, and every year they die. But if they heard from 1 million of us, they'd have to find a source of funding. Right now, they simply say, there's no money for art in schools. But if they heard from a lot of us, they'd have to find the money. And in Maryland, they passed a 35-cent tobacco tax to fund things. There's an oil severance tax in 21 states in the U.S. Oil is extracted in 22 states. We're the only state without an oil severance tax. That would give us $2 billion. We could have universal preschool in California with that. And that would really help K-12 education, because we have about 60% of our kids growing up in poverty. So if we had universal preschool, we don't have 60% of our kids and start behind. So those are some of the bills that are pending right now. We're issuing alerts right now on these, very hot topics.
So the thing that I always struggle with is, when do we require our state and federal government and our state education agencies to actually look at the way they do things and realize that there's a lot of waste that would allow us to continue to fund a lot of those things, but because there are so many layers of bureaucracy, or in my opinion, a lot of the priorities are just misplaced where a lot of the money is going?
Mm-hmm.
How do we help change that too?
Yeah, so some of it is misperception about that. So California, we actually rank 46th in funding on administrators. We're near bottom. We're in the bottom 5 for how much we spend on administration, so we're actually very, very low on how much we spend on administration. The second point is the top performing states, not the top spending states, but the top performing states are spending between $16,000 and $19,000 per kid, and California's at $9,000. So it's hard to argue that with $9,000 we can possibly give our kids what they need. Basically, again, the top performing states are at $16,000 to $19,000 per student. So there's not too much, wiggle room there that's being wasted. We really need to dramatically increase the spending per student. But as far as how to spend it appropriately and make sure it's going where it needs to go, that we know. We have actually, there's a couple reports we've done in California. I'm just blanking on it right now, but it was done by Mike Kirst out of Stanford. And there's another one done by Linda Darling Hammond out of Stanford. And they found once you start getting to the level where we need to be of spending per student, the top 2 proven places, number 1 is on the teachers. You could have a larger classroom size, but you have to have an educated, trained, professionally developed teacher. That's the biggest bang for your buck. We need to really increase our investment in teacher education and training. Right now, we have a 75% decline in people enrolling in teacher credential programs. 75% decline. We're going to be really hurting at we need to dramatically increase our investment in teaching. And then the second place, when we get the additional funding, is we need to invest in universal preschool. every dollar spent saves 8 later, because we have these large, significant proportion. 60% of our kids grow up in poverty. If we give them universal preschool, then when they enter kindergarten, they're better prepared, and we don't spend a lot of K-12 trying to catch them up, bringing in reading specialists and math specialists and all these specialists that are very expensive. So it's I don't think when you're only around 9,000 per kid, and you need about 16 to 19,000, you're not going to free up enough to really hit the level you need to hit.
So don't you think, though? I mean, and you're a lot more knowledge of this than I am. The U.S. on a per capita basis spends twice as much on education per student as most other developed countries, but as a country, our performance continues to slide.
Right.
So it obviously is not just a correlation between dollars. Where do you think we're missing the boat as a whole? You know, what are we doing wrong?
Right.
Because with as much money as we're throwing at this, we should be at the top of the heap, not at the bottom of the heap in many cases.
Well, I know like some of the top performing countries, for example, Finland. Finland does not spend all the money that we spend on testing. They don't. You know, that's where we spend a lot of time into all this. Finland does not do a lot of testing. I know that for sure. And I do know a lot of these other countries are starting much earlier. They don't wait till the child's 5. Because then you got a lot of children, you know, who are growing up in poverty are so far behind. So I think they start younger, earlier with, you know, just early childhood, you know, learning opportunities. So I would say there. I know Finland does a tremendous investment in teacher education. So what they do is like they, some of these countries offer free college and then 1 year free mentoring before they get a classroom. And they just find those teachers then, it really reduces. So in California, we have a 40% teacher turnover. And every time you have a turnover, you have to hire and train somebody new. You're wasting a lot of resources on that. So some of these countries invest in the education, invest in professional development, and then they don't have that turnover rate. And their resources are not spent rehiring, retraining, you know, with every new teacher. So that's another, that's what other places do. They, you know, it's found like, I think it's a 3-to-1 cost savings. You know, I think we have some states in the U.S. that adopted that, and they had a teacher dropout rate around 30%. It dropped down to 10%, and had a 3-to-1 cost savings. So if you can do the upfront investment in early child education, upfront investment in teachers, in the long run, then that saves you money for the schools.
So I have a challenge with I don't have a challenge with the concept of preschool. Yeah. But I have a challenge with universal preschool because there's 40% of the population that is not in poverty.
Right. That
mom and dad should be involved.
Right.
Instead of just the public education system.
Yeah.
So how do you work with something like that?
I mean, you could do it income-based. But I want to just say also I'm middle class. But my child's Montessori preschool many years ago was $800 a month, which is a big hit. And I had 1 kid. If I had 4 kids... I mean, so even for a middle-class family, and that was part-time.
Right.
$800 a month was a big hit. That was a big hit. So that's why I think if you could just even get like half off would have really helped even the middle-class families. And maybe it could be 100% for low income, but even the middle class could sure use it. I mean, I thought that was a big price tag.
Well, no, I guess my question is, why does school need to be doing that? Why don't mom and dad do that at night?
So... Well, it's not just at night. What's the child going to do all day while mom and dad are at a job?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, mom and dad are at a job by day, and you can't put a child in front of a TV. They want to be stimulated. This is when I always tell people in the very early year, that first year, they're having 700 neural connections a second. The brain's creating 700 neural connections a second, and if it's not stimulated, those connections are not made.
Right.
So in that very first year when you have a baby, that's why a lot of other countries that are doing really well, they actually give 1 year maternity leave, paid maternity leave, because that way that child's gained those 700 neural connections created, you know. So if we had better maternity leave for, you know, a lot of these countries that are doing much better for us on the educational levels, because they do 1 year paid maternity or paternity leave.
Right.
And then those kids are getting that brain development that they need in that first critical year.
I guess my question is that society's job, or is that maybe misplaced priorities in the home?
Well, if mom and dad aren't in the home, the thing is you got to.
Well, I know, but you've got to decide, right? I mean, this is going to surprise people. I'm a homeschool dad.
Yeah.
And we've homeschooled from the very beginning, and we put a lot of our family priorities on the back burner to educate our kids.
Yep.
and
So we've got families in our area that they couldn't afford to do that. We've got mom and dad working 2 jobs each because they're low-income wage earners. And I don't know if you know the cost of housing in the Bay Area, but it's just through the roof.
Right.
So they're working 2 jobs, and they're crammed like maybe in a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. It's just, at least I'm in the Bay Area, and it's no longer. I grew up in the Bay Area where one parent could work, one parent could stay home. Take a look at our rental prices and our housing prices in the Bay Area, and it's simply not doable. It takes a 2 income. We have people leaving the area. One is a 6-figure technology. One is a 6-figure attorney, left the Bay Area. They said we could not afford to stay here and have our children. So you've got mom and dad, both. The companies are not offering paid maternity or maternity leave. They are leaving the Bay Area because of the cost of housing is through the roof. We have a 3-to-1 jobs to housing imbalance. So it's the cost of living that's out of control, and they can't. A lot of people can't stay home, and they'd love to stay home with their kids, and they can't afford to.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe they can move to Kansas, but in California.
Well, I was going to say there's a lot of places that are a lot less expensive.
Right.
That people can move, and it's not right here at the Bay or whatever. But once again, we all have decisions we've got to make in life, right? And some of us have to think about moving.
So, or you can move, but then because our California only funds schools at about $9,000 per kid, if you move out of the good school district, when you need honestly about $14,000 to $16,000 per kid, then your kid's going to suffer. You're going to be like my
right, but they don't have to stay in California.
True. No, we're just talking about. But the problem is, I think every kid in California deserves a chance to get a great education.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make sure that can happen with my app.
Right.
I don't want people to have to leave California. I want them to be able to stay here. It's a great place. Give them great schools. Put us back to the top 10 schools I attended. I rode a top 10 school all the way to law school. I think every child should have that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. What if people want to bring their organization on board with what you guys are doing so they can be getting those alerts and getting active legislatively and otherwise, what's the best way to do that?
Well, if you want to support education, there's already PTAs on the app. You simply have to go to the App Store and download the Click My Cause app. If you want to support other great causes, then they can contact us and we can talk to them about adding them to the app. So if they want to send out environmental alerts or affordable housing or education, healthcare,
So all they literally have to do is go to the App Store.
Or they can literally go to the App Store and they can start receiving alerts right now to help education. Yeah.
So are you guys able to provide all that? Is there a monetary side of this somewhere? How does all that work?
Eventually. Right now, we're just trying to prove out our concept that people really do want to make a difference. Yeah.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Anything else, Nancy, you want to leave with folks before we kind of wrap things up?
I think I would tell people that really it's just 2 clicks on your phone. You can make a huge difference for the kids in our state. They don't get a do-over. Please be their voice.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Nancy Krop, Click My Cause. You can go to clickmycause.com to learn more. Thanks for taking time to join us in the School Zone.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the School Zone's School Fundraising Ideas Podcast and for simplifying the search. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode. When you do, please leave us a 5-star review in iTunes or your podcast player of choice.
There are a lot of kids in this world just like me, except they don't have a way to get any clean drinking water. Clean Water Kids is the kid part of kidsacrosscultures.org, where we ask school kids to be our partner in raising awareness for water projects. Clean water changes kids, which changes schools and changes families. And when we help other kids get clean water, it changes us. Clean water changes everything. Raising money for water filters and other water projects is really easy. We have schools, organizations, and other groups all over who do it. Go to cleanwaterkids.com for more information and ideas on how you can partner with us. Although we focus on schools, you don't have to be a school to help us. You can tell your school, your team, your church, your club, or troop, or whatever you're a part of about cleanwaterkids.com and see how easy it is to help. I think every kid deserves clean water to drink. Don't you? I'm Travis, and I'm a clean water kid.